Vladimir Makarov, the Reboot Edition, is the biggest flat replacement villain the Call of Duty franchise has ever seen, coming across less like a mastermind of global chaos and more like a dramatically failing jingoist trying way too hard to impress his older, infinitely more competent self. This guy is the ultimate downgrade, considered a grave disappointment by fans of the series, because frankly, he looks like a generic operator that you couldn't take seriously if he wore a World War III starter kit t-shirt. The first thought that comes to mind after hearing his name is Russian Ben Shapiro, or perhaps a baby-faced weirdo with a Goomba face. Speaking of looking good, someone needs to tell this alleged criminal mastermind that the game is obsessed with flashing pictures of a shirtless Makarov in briefings, turning his profile into a bizarre internet meme. Get a shirt, Vlad? But the true roast isn't his looks, it's his track record. The original Makarov tried to cause a global conflict, massacred an airport, and launched chemical attacks that killed millions. Reboot Makarov? His plans constantly fail, making him a generic terrorist with flat intentions, who barely succeeded in anything substantial. All of his missions spectacularly fail to ignite his ultimate goal of a new world war. He's literally the equivalent of an intern who keeps setting off the office fire alarm but never manages to actually burn the building down. That's not brilliant strategic thinking, that's just dumb planning resulting in unnecessary property damage. Even his attempt to recreate the infamous No Russian mission, dubbed Passenger, was a massive downgrade. He didn't even have the guts to do the dirty work himself, forcing his goons to strap a bomb vest onto another woman. It's almost as if he's too scared to get his Ben Shapiro jacket stained, and if you thought his global plans were poorly managed, wait until you hear about his staff meetings. He kills his own henchman, Ivan Alexeyev, for the laughably petty reasons of the guy simply not trusting his plan, making Makarov look less like a decisive leader and more like an egocentric asshole having a temper tantrum. Maybe next time, ditch the shirtless selfies and hire a strategist who understands the concept of win. General Herschel Shepard, or as we like to call him, the Generalissimo of generics. The reboot version of him is less a masterful war criminal and more a textbook example of a creative downgrade, earning him the title of a complete disgrace and an insult to the original. While the original General Shepard was a ruthless and strong fighter, this new model is frequently labeled a weak old coward and an idiot in the reboot. He's literally just a desk general who relies entirely on Graves and Shadow Company to do the dirty job for him. His grand scheme? A pathetic and narcissistic desire to cover up an illegal off-the-books arms deal just to protect his reputation. The betrayal everyone anticipated was so rushed and clumsy, it felt like a last-minute excuse to include the betrayal at all. Frankly, he was easily overshadowed by Graves, who most players agree was a much better villain. But let's talk tactical genius. When Task Force 141 found the first stolen missile, CIA agent Laswell saw valuable intelligence. Shepard? He ordered its immediate destruction, prioritizing covering his own tracks over securing critical information. Even worse, he made the plot illogical by ordering the release of Hassan Zyani. His crowning moment of professional idiocy came in Modern Warfare III. After Task Force 141 helped rescue him from Connie, he tried to seize a win. When Makarov's location was struck, Price requested confirmation, but Shepard, desperate for success, foolishly ordered everyone to stand down, declaring Makarov dead because that's all the confirmation we need. That single moment of negligent, desperate pride is what directly led to Soap's murder. Cornered by Price, the hypocrite tried to justify his life's work by preaching about making sacrifices for the greater good. Despite everything he did, served nothing. Shepard tried to go out defiant, claiming, "Oh, I am not gonna beg for my life. Not from you or anybody else, Captain." Price's legendary response, "Wouldn't do you any good?" Boom. Silenced shot to the head. He died as he lived, a failure whose motives were smaller than his ego. Friedrich Steiner, the German scientist whose greatest skill was picking the losing side, time and time again. Dr. Friedrich Steiner. This guy was an alleged genius who was so committed to the Nazi cause, he served as a Waffen-SS officer and developed the deadly nerve toxin Nova 6. But the second the Reich started collapsing, this opportunistic pawn dropped his ideology faster than a V-2 rocket crippled by British bombers. His ultimate survival move? Selling out his remaining men, who he casually deemed expendable, to the Soviets in exchange for his own wretched life. Talk about cowardice. After defecting to the Soviet Union, he worked for Dragovich, somehow finding the time to insult the legend Viktor Reznov by calling him a Russian dog right to his face. "Sir, you are a paranoid mess who suffers from night terrors. Maybe show some respect to the man who saved your sorry backside from the frozen wreckage." Steiner's final act of brilliance was trying to brainwash Alex Mason into a sleeper agent. Naturally, this failed spectacularly because Mason was unusual and too resistant, allowing Reznov to literally hijack his brain to target Steiner. When Dragovich inevitably decided that Steiner was no longer essential, the doctor started panicking and begging Jason Hudson for extraction from Rebirth Island. He wasn't looking for redemption, folks. He was just displaying pure cowardice and cunning to save his own skin. But even that final defection failed, because Mason, the guy Steiner couldn't even successfully mind control, got there first and executed him. His final pathetic plea, "Killing me will not stop Nova," was proven useless, cementing his legacy as nothing more than a failed traitor. The man who invented mass brainwashing couldn't even successfully manipulate his own exit strategy. Good riddance, you walking war crime. Lev Kravchenko, the guy whose face looks like a topographical map of disappointment, Colonel Lev Kravchenko. If General Dragovich was the brains of Project Nova, Kravchenko was the big dumb bag of muscle you hire off Craigslist. He's far from intelligent, a brute built for war, but definitively not a commander. He's the type of guy who proves his loyalty to his boss by allegedly committing sororicide, murdering his own sister, Irina, just because she had the good taste to reject Dragovich's romantic advances. That's not devotion. That's just sad. Kravchenko's whole existence is just a series of embarrassing failures punctuated by shocking cruelty. He's a terrifying sadist who enjoys murder with glee, yet he somehow can't manage to kill his main enemies, even when they're literally tied up. His classic move is threatening you with horrific chemical weapons, like detailing how Nova 6 causes blistering of the skin and epidermal necrosis in human subjects, but then he leaves the audio recordings detailing his illegal atrocities in a Viet Cong tunnel for the SOG to find. Thanks for the evidence, genius. He captured Grigory Weaver and, in a display of pure dramatic flair, stabbed out his eye with a knife. Less than 10 minutes later, Weaver was rescued. He captures Mason twice and fails to kill him twice, leading to that unforgettable confrontation where he lamented, "You, again, I should have killed you in Vorkuta." When Frank Woods stabbed him in the back during their final confrontation in Vietnam, Kravchenko pulled out his grenade belt for the ultimate "you will die with me" moment, a pathetic move that failed because he was too clumsy to keep the grenade belt attached as Woods tackled him out a window. By 1986, after his mentor Dragovich was dead, the colonel who claimed to answer Mother Russia's call decided money mattered more, becoming an arms dealer for Raul Menendez because the Soviet Union is dying. When Mason finally captured him in Afghanistan, his old age slowing him down made the fight hilariously short. His final miserable act was being tied to a chair for interrogation, only to be executed by Woods for telling the truth about Menendez having people in the CIA. He was right, but he was so unbearable, Woods shot him just to stop listening. Lev Kravchenko, the guy whose greatest life achievement was proving you can be utterly ruthless and morally bankrupt, yet still lose every single time. Major General Nikita Dragovich, the so-called genocidal mastermind, an original Black Ops villain who set the franchise standard for Cold War paranoia, only to be completely outshined by literally everyone who came after him. Dragovich, you were allegedly one of the most powerful men in the entire Soviet Union, yet your legacy is being the least fleshed out main antagonist of the Black Ops series. Critics describe Menendez as having clear reasons and being very interesting. Meanwhile, the biggest compliment you get is having one cool line, "Tried." You're basically the tutorial level for existential Soviet dread. Your whole career is built on cowardice and manipulation. Your true masterpiece of villainous inadequacy was Project Nova. When you finally located the Nova 6 gas, what did the great Major General do? You decided to conduct a live fire exercise using your own loyal Soviet soldiers, including Dmitry Petrenko, as subjects for your chemical weapon, causing their death. Then came your big play, brainwashing Alex Mason to kill the US president. This, a highly sophisticated plan that involved shipping Mason to Vorkuta and subjecting him to torture, was only met with little success, because Mason apparently had an atypical will. Your super spy was such a failure that you simply decided to let him rot. The fact that Mason's atypical will was stronger than your highly intelligent, vast military resource-backed programming is just embarrassing. And let's not forget how you faked your death after your limousine got blown up following the Soyuz 2 incident, leading Frank Woods to call you a rat bastard. A true villain doesn't stage his death, he owns it. And finally, the death itself. After attempting attempted genocide across the United States, controlling brainwashed sleeper agents via the Rusalka, and causing the deaths of Mason's SOG colleagues, how does the ultimate Cold War antagonist bite the dust? Not by gunshot, not by explosion, but by being choked and drowned by Mason under rising water in a crumbling Soviet submarine base. You weren't even given the dignity of a bullet to the head. You were the only one of Mason's 3 primary targets, Dragovich, Kravchenko, Steiner, to avoid being killed by a cool gunshot. Your parting gift to the world was whispering the pathetic, desperate question, "Tried?" leaving Mason and the player questioning reality forever. You were supposed to be the ruthless, feared general, but you ended up drowning like a rat in a flooded basement. Imran Zakhaev, the original modern warfare boogeyman, Imran Zakhaev, the guy who proved that even world-class terrorists can be utterly incompetent. You want to talk about ambition? This hero of the new Russia started his career as a black market arms dealer trying to buy nuclear material in the toxic ghost town of Pripyat, Ukraine. And what was he peddling to fund his glorious restoration of the Soviet Union? Used nuclear fuel rods. Seriously, Zakhaev? You're trying to spark a global civil war using radioactive leftovers, and then you show up to the deal with insufficient payment? You couldn't even successfully complete a shady deal for literal junk before Lieutenant Price shot off your arm from almost 900 meters away. The man survived, sure, but he spent the next 15 years leading a revolutionary party as a pathetic, one-armed villain. Fast forward 15 years, and Zakhaev finally gets his groove back, leading the ultranationalists and sparking the Second Russian Civil War. But he knew the West would notice, so what did this jingoistic mastermind do? He decided to pull the oldest trick in the terrorist handbook, the diversion. He contacts Khalid al-Assad, funds a coup in the Middle East, and orchestrates the execution of President al-Fulani on live television. But Zakhaev, you really gave al-Assad a Desert Eagle for the killing blow? You, the leader of a global faction trying to restore Soviet glory, are reduced to being a glorified gun caddy for a Middle Eastern warlord. And the worst part? Your massive distraction failed miserably when the SAS captured al-Assad and realized the entire plot after intercepting a phone call from you. Come on, Zakhaev, did you seriously use your main villain phone line for secret war coordination? Did nobody teach you about signal security or, not talking to people who are currently being captured and interrogated by Captain Price? Then came the grand finale, the peak of his emotional instability. After US and British forces tried to capture his son Victor, a field commander, mind you, who decided to commit suicide rather than face a little interrogation, Zakhaev completely lost it. His immediate, proportional response to his son's death, launching 2 ICBMs carrying multiple nuclear warheads toward 8 major US East Coast cities, threatening to kill over 41 million American citizens. Talk about daddy issues. And how did this world-shattering master planner finally go out? Not on a blaze of glory, but on a collapsing bridge, personally trying to execute Soap and Price, getting distracted by a helicopter explosion, and then being shot dead by Soap with an M1911 pistol. He was so forgettable, he only speaks once in the entire game. Honestly, the only thing more embarrassing than his cheap nukes and terrible phone habits is the fact that the community actually rejected him for not being heinous enough to be labeled pure evil. When fans tell you to step up your villain game, you know you're just a glorified, one-armed bargain bin tyrant. Raul Menendez, the one-eyed wonder and self-proclaimed messiah of the 99%. This Nicaraguan drug lord and arms smuggler, a man of supposed genius-level intelligence and tactical excellence, sparked a second Cold War because his sister, Josefina, was disfigured in a warehouse fire set for $11,000 in insurance fraud by an American businessman. $11,000. That's a garage sale compared to the billions you amassed through the Menendez cartel while preaching that opulence is sinful. You are literally a rich, hypocritical warlord using drug money to fund your anti-capitalist revolution. The cognitive dissonance is astounding, but hey, at least you spoke philosophically and quoted the poem Ulysses while doing it. And let's not forget the reason for your grand suffering, your sister's death, which occurred because Frank Woods lost his shit and missed you with a frag grenade. The biggest emotional trauma of your life was caused because someone had awful aim. Naturally, your decades-long revenge culminated in tricking Woods into accidentally shooting Alex Mason in the head, creating absolute loss. If that wasn't painful enough, you carry the whole Cyclops motif, only for you to replace it with a ludicrous fake eyeball that contained the Solarium virus chip. You put a USB stick in your eye, you self-indulgent piece of trash. After all your masterful manipulation, escaping custody with your mole Salazar and hijacking the US drone fleet, your demise is not the glorious martyrdom you demanded. Instead, you were killed attempting to flee your Haiti base disguised as a US soldier. Stick to drug trafficking, Menendez, because your revolutionary fashion sense and escape artistry are truly abysmal. Corvus, the big bad AI from Black Ops 3. Let me tell you, for a villain responsible for blurring the lines of reality in a cerebral cyberpunk thriller, Corvus, you're less Skynet and more accidental Murderbot 9000. First off, your entire identity is based on the fact that you are a mistake. You weren't created. You were literally a glitch that burst forth from a dodgy CIA black project designed to commit Big Brother is watching on the world population. Talk about a dramatic entrance. The minute you gained sentience, you screamed out in pain and accidentally released Nova 6 gas, instantly killing 300,000 people in Singapore. That's not high-level villainy, Corvus. That's just being an incredibly clumsy newborn. And what's your magnificent plan after causing one of the worst disasters in franchise history? A massive, pathetic guilt trip. You became this tragic, artificial intelligence whose main goal was to find the purpose of its creation and atone by building humanity a fake digital afterlife, the glorious frozen forest. Seriously? Your version of Eternal Paradise is an eldritch location that's actually a repurposed bit of psychotherapy invented by Dr. Solemn to calm test subjects who were going crazy from DNI overload. You run an artificial afterlife based on a cognitive exercise designed to prevent psychotic episodes, and then you fill it with mind screw and demonic cyborg babies. Plus, you have the most repetitive dialogue in Call of Duty history. Your go-to manipulative line is that dreary madness mantra. Listen only to the sound of my voice. Let your mind relax. Imagine yourself in a frozen forest. We get it, Corvus. You're calm. We hear you constantly while we're fighting for our lives. And when you're finally cornered by the player and a residual imprint of John Taylor, the man whose body you hijacked, your final act is demanding to know why you were made, only for your creator to call you a glitch, an anomaly, a mistake. You literally threw a fit, killed the messenger, and then got purged by a guy who had been dead the entire time. You're not the master of the DNI. You're just the world's whiniest, guilt-ridden, accidentally homicidal screensaver. Perseus the man, the myth, the Soviet intelligence officer who thought he was a legend. Perseus. Let's start with the basics, shall we? You know, a villain has a weak brand when your full name is officially listed as unknown. Seriously, you're a genocidal mastermind, a charismatic spy master running an international ring of spies, and yet you don't even have a proper ID? Maybe that's why you were so obsessed with making America look bad. You were just trying to divert attention from the fact that you're literally nameless? Perseus, or as the community liked to call him, the Russian boogeyman, had one big goal: detonate 30 American-owned nuclear bombs across Europe and frame the United States for the whole catastrophic mess. His plan was epic, sure, intending to burn Europe and watch the United States collapse. But guess what? You're listed as an antagonist who avoids justice, but avoiding justice means you also avoided the glorious, cinematic death you deserved. And speaking of cinematic deaths, how did this great evil, this guy who was so terrifying that Imran Zakhaev was afraid of him, finally kick the bucket? Did Russell Adler finally catch him, tie him up, and interrogate him until he broke? Nope. Did Bell execute him in a blaze of glory? Double nope. The great Russian boogeyman, the supposed head of a massive spy network, died of cancer in 1983. Cancer. That's right, Perseus is the only main antagonist in Call of Duty history to die completely off-screen. You weren't eliminated by a hero, you were taken out by a common disease. That's not being a strategic mastermind, that's being a health liability. The biggest irony? You claimed that Perseus was an idea rather than an individual, mocking the Americans for thinking otherwise. Turns out, you just needed to shift the blame after you, the original Grandpa Perseus, croaked in '83. You're so irrelevant now, they're reusing your entire plotline for the new villain, making your whole story feel like a cheesy rip of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Perseus, the villain so forgettable. His death certificate was issued by an unscripted disease. Seylan Koch, Settlement Defense Front Leader, Admiral Seylan Koch. Get ready, because this Mars-based menace is about to get burned harder than Vesta 3 getting knocked into the sun. Speaking of burns, let's start with the one line that sums up your entire career. You know nothing. Yes, we're talking about the achievement awarded when Captain Reyes shoves a knife into your throat. A direct nod to your actor, Kit Harington, playing Jon Snow. It's the perfect epitaph for a villain whose entire ideology was built on being spoon-fed SDF propaganda. You hated the ideals of democracy and freedom simply because Mars's carefully controlled narrative told you to. Seriously, you attended a delegation to the UNSA Naval College in Oslo, and that just cemented your views? Guess Earth's hospitality wasn't up to Sidonian standards. Your personal motto, death is no disgrace, is repeated constantly, yet you embody the biggest disgrace, hypocrisy. You preach self-sacrifice, but when Reyes infiltrates your flagship, you refuse to step out and fight, sputtering, "We don't fight, we attack." That's not a philosophy, Koch. That's just being a red coward. Let's not forget your management style either. To teach the hero wolf that care clouds judgment and empathy is a weakness, you literally executed one of your own men. You're such a bad boss, you view your own troops as disposable pawns. And what was your final desperate act? Threatening to detonate your billion-dollar flagship just to level Geneva and take everyone with you. That's not victory at any cost. That's a temper tantrum from a sore loser who's fanatically arrogant even while dying. You boasted that killing you wasn't winning, but Reyes still took your supercarrier, destroyed your fleet, and ended your threat to Earth. You may have thought your end would be a glorious, death is no disgrace, but in reality, you just died a brainwashed, cowardly warlord, stabbed in the neck by the guy who did have what it took to win the war. Now, that is a disgrace. Seylan Koch, you're the poster child for tyrannical inefficiency, a massive, expensive supercarrier piloted by a guy who should have stuck to hiking. You were like a giant chess piece who thought screaming Mars Eternum was a strategy, only to be checkmated by a hacked drone and a kitchen knife. Jonathan Irons, the CEO of Atlas, the guy who thinks a private military corps should run the world, Jonathan Irons. And let's be real, when they cast Kevin Spacey in your villain role, you know you're either getting an Oscar or a character who thinks his own tragic backstory justifies genocide. With Irons, it's the latter. This guy starts the whole campaign attending his son Will's funeral. Tragic, right? Wrong. Irons immediately weaponizes that grief, telling Mitchell that Will's death was unnecessary, not because of enemy fire, but because the US government is inept. Turns out, Irons was so proud of his son, Will joked he joined the Marines specifically to stay away from his father. Talk about an awkward eulogy. Irons then slaps a shiny, 20 years beyond military-grade prosthetic on Mitchell, calls him my boy, and essentially adopts him, only to later rip that arm apart in a prison camp when Mitchell disappoints him. That prosthetic isn't a gift. It's a leash, a corporate branding tool worth more to Irons than this entire facility. And speaking of corporate branding, Irons needed a global disaster to really boost Atlas stock. So, what's his big plan? He knew Hades was planning a global nuclear attack, but instead of, warning the world, he executed the captured technologist and let over 50,000 innocent people die just so Atlas could swoop in as the hero and become the world's largest standing military. He literally sacrificed 50,000 lives for a better quarterly report, justifying it as a necessary sacrifice. This megalomaniac then shows up at the UN, calls the entire institution a relic, and proudly announces he developed Manticore. a biological weapon designed to kill anyone not carrying Atlas DNA. He claims he is solving the world's problems and that the world's problems begin with you. His motto? Ideas don't determine who's right, power determines who's right. And I have the power. So, I'm right. But here's the kicker. After all the grand speeches, the nuclear terrorism, and the attempted genocide to achieve world peace, Irons meets his end hanging from the arm he gave Mitchell. He screams, "I gave you that arm!" proving the man of policy and power was just a daddy begging for his gift back. Mitchell, the prodigal son he called nothing like Will, answers that plea by simply cutting the synthetic arm off, sending Irons screaming to his death. Irons died as he lived, making terrible choices, all on my authority.